Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 2020 Sun's transit through Gemini. This is being brought to you from the American College of Vedic Astrology, and I'd like to thank you for spending part of your Sunday with me today discussing this. The subtitle I've come up with for this month is It's Complicated because it's complicated, and we'll be talking about that throughout throughout the presentation. I would also like to just put a note that I'm re-recording this because we had a bunch of technical difficulties at the live broadcast. So I wanted to take this moment to apologize to those of you who had logged in. I'm so sorry about that. But I wanted to get this out today, and we'll get it up on the YouTube channel so that you can see it. So let's dive in. So I'm Ramdas Sinclair, and this is all my contact information. I want to thank you for tuning in today. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me on this presentation. I'm always happy to chat with folks. So thank you again for supporting ACVA by coming today. You're really helping the college out. I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, which if you're seeing this, hopefully you're watching it on YouTube. So just click that bell button and the subscribe link at the bottom in the comment section, and you'll be updated on all our postings. Also, you can join our newsletter at akvaonline.org/contact. And we just put out a letter a couple weeks ago, and we're trying to revive the ACVA Comet, we call it. As Charlotte said very cleverly, it comes around when it comes around. So we have a team of people dedicated to getting that out on a more regular basis. And finally, I want to remind you that you can always make a tax-free donation to the college. We really appreciate those donations. So let's begin with a brief mantra to Ganesha, and then we will do the MahaMrityunjaya mantra, which is for healing, and I think that's something all of us in the world would benefit from. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha, Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha, Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sagandim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva bandhanan mrityor mokshyam amritat. Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sagandim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva bandhanan mrityor mokshyam amritat. Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sagandim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva bandhanan mrityor mokshyam amritat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. So today we'll be talking about the sun's transit through the sign of Gemini. We'll be also discussing the key transits, which form a very powerful, confusing, and complicated background to all the things that are going on right now in the sky. I'll give you some ideas of a sign by sign, and that will kind of wrap up the presentation for today. So Sun is going to be in Gemini from June 15th through July 15th, and I'm calculating these charts for sunrise in Seattle because it's just a reminder that the Vedic day starts at sunrise, not at midnight. So just to give us, that reminder that when you're doing transits, you can do them from anything. But classically, you take the sunrise time, and that's when at sunrise, once the planet has moved, that can be taken as the beginning time. Now, I do note that this will go in actually today, the sun will be making the move in Seattle here on the 14th at noon. So it will be just within an hour or so from now. It's also worthy to note that this is Donald Trump's birthday today. And as you know, the president of the US, it's kind of a very interesting time. So when we look at these transits, they are global in nature, but that means they're also very specific. So you can see world trends through studying the transits. You can see specific events in the life of someone you're studying. And so these things are going to be more common they're going to affect you more in your chart if you have planets in the sign. Like we're taking the sun, the Surya Lagna. So if you have planets in Gemini, you may experience some of these things more often. If your sun is there, this is your solar return. So this can also be taken as the events for Donald Trump's next year. So, I mean, it's pretty easy to, I like predictions like this, like to say it's complicated. So if he were to come and be consulting with me, and I looked at his annual chart here, it would be a very complicated year he's going to have ahead. So let's go and see what we have. So here is the chart, and this is for, again, sunrise in Seattle. You can see the ascendant and sun are right together. So we look at Sun and Mercury, which is, he is neutral. Sun is neutral in the sign of Mercury, but he also rules the third house, which is what we call an Upachaya house. So for Gemini rising, the Sun is not a great planet because he will get better through time, but he is, from this position, from this sign, he's ruling the house where all desires begin. So it's interesting to look at that and say, we see a few challenges right there. He's also seated with Rahu, very close to Rahu, and they will be conjuncting in a few days from now. And also, if you think about the rules for establishing temporary friendships, we know that whenever the Lord of the house is in the sign, it makes it more challenging for the other planets who are seated there. So initially, just looking at this first house, we see there's some challenges to the sun. Now, I will say last month he was in the sign of Taurus, where he was in an enemy sign. This month he's in a neutral sign. So it may be a little step up. The sun may be a little more able to accomplish things that he's given. He may be a little more forthcoming. The other thing I always like to look at is what's the status of the moon? Because when the sun moves in here, what is the mindset? What is the mental set that's going to start the transit? And here we see that the moon is in the sign of Pisces, which is a dual-minded sign. It's the most dual of all the dual signs. So this can be a time when moon is there. Decisions can be difficult to make, but the strength is you can see both sides of an issue. So it could be very good for understanding the complex energies of this time, but it's not really a place, I would say, of resolution right now. So this is a challenging aspect as well. Mars will move into this sign in the month, and then we have a fourth aspect, 1, 2, 3, 4, once he moves in. So Mars will be aspecting Mercury. Ketu's there, and then Jupiter later in the month will move in to Sagittarius, his own sign, but he will be retrograde. So that is, again, a complicated energy, but he will be aspecting the sun during this later in the month. There'll be a direct aspect. So those are some of the highlights of the whole chart. We also see that Venus, Saturn, Jupiter are all retrograde, and Mercury will be turning retrograde as well this month. So the basic things we're looking at when we look at the Surya Lagna, the sun's transit, is what's our ability to access power, or what's our experience of power to be like on a personal, on a community, and on a global nature. So sun has suns to me is all about power. The first is the power and authority. So this is what, the sun's character represents kings and father figures and has the quality of leadership. Sun has the power of vitality. He actually vivifies us. He's related to the prana. So he has concerns with health, and also he creates, everything has life because of him, so he's related to creation. So we see if he's not in a great place, then this doesn't really bode well for the coronavirus, because health, we need him strong. It's interesting that the sun's a natural antiseptic, which will kill the virus, but we need him really strong, and we see that he's not quite there. The power of soul connection is perhaps his most interesting and highest connection. He represents what we call Atma, which is the great soul. Another way to look at this is you have I, the little I, which is my view of the world, and then you have the higher mind, I, the great all-encompassing cosmos. So he represents the big I, like the whole um, the cosmic view of, what's good for all people, which is why he's connected to Dharma. But he also gives the qualities of charisma, self-confidence, and courage. So again, we're seeing that if he's not in this is his optimal state, you'll be super charismatic, you'll be totally self-confident, and you will feel the conviction of your actions, so you will be courageous and able to implement them, and they will all be aligned with Dharma. That's his highest manifestation. And unfortunately, we're not quite there yet. So, as I said, he's in a natural planet, and he rules the third house. So these are some challenges we see for him. Now, one strength I haven't covered is that because Mercury is in his own sign of Gemini, he is forming a Bhadra Yoga. Now, Bhadra Yoga emphasizes practical thinking, gives you a good sense of humor, which is really important in what we're dealing with today. To be able to take a lighter view of it, to be able to somehow make sure that you're getting some relief from all of the constant drumbeat of bad news. They do not have time for subtle matters, but people with Bhadra Yoga are organized and fact-based. So these could be very strong things. We may see an emergence of a little more organization, and as we move into the crises, both of them, both the crises for equal justice and the crises around the coronavirus, we may be getting more facts. And maybe facts will have a larger place in developing solutions for what we're facing. Mercury, however, has this dual nature. So when he's placed with malefics, he tends to support whoever's around him. So this is coming in again, that he's with Rahu and supporting that agenda, and then he'll take on the sun's agenda from June 20th forward as the sun comes closer to Mercury. Mercury always adopts the energy of the planet that's closest to him. So if you have multiple planets in a sign, look at which planet Mercury is closest to, and that's the agenda he is going to be supporting. Then the other thing, I looked at this, and I mean, quite frankly, I'm seeing that there's a lot of challenges coming up. And so Jyotish, our job is to bring the light. So that means, we do bring the light of, saying this looks like it's challenging, but I also try to find some positives, because I think that's just helpful. If we can identify what's going to be positive, it gives us something to focus on, which can help have some relief, because sometimes we can miss the positive things. So I use a technique called the Aruda of the sun, and basically what an Aruda does, and you can take this for any of the planets or the Lagna or anything, is that it gives you an insight as to how the energy is going to manifest. So it can be kind of a quick snapshot of what's happening. So here in the Aruda of the sun, we would the technique which is given in Brihat Parashara Hora Shastra chapter 31 is you take the element you want to look at. So we want to look at the sun. The sun is in the sign of Pisces. It's in the sign of Gemini, ruled by Mercury. So you see how many signs the Lord of the sign has moved, and then you do that distance again, and it gives you the Aruda. So let's take, this is an exception case. So let's say that the sun is in Gemini, but Gemini, instead of being there, is in the second house. So he would be in Cancer. So Gemini has moved one sign, so you'd move it one sign and you'd move it one more sign. And that would give the Aruda of Gemini being, the Aruda of the sun would be in Leo. So that would be a very strong manifestation. I would love to be able to pop back and show you the chart, but because I'm recording within the application of PowerPoint, it won't let me do that. So if you can just visualize it for a moment. If the Aruda turns out to be the first or seventh house, then you add 10. So basically what I'm telling you right now is that with Sun in Gemini, you move 10 houses forward and the Aruda will be in Pisces. So even again, using this secondary technique, we get a mixed message because Pisces, as I said, is extremely dual-natured, and so it doesn't give a clear-cut decision. The aspects we've already talked about here, about Mars will be moving in on the 19th and giving a fourth aspect, and Jupiter will be retrograding into his own sign, which is 7th from Gemini, Sagittarius, and he'll have a direct, he'll be aspecting from June 30th forward. July 13th will be an exact aspect onto the Sun, which can expand the power. Whatever the Sun's doing around that date, it can take it global, no matter what it's doing. So I unfortunately have to say that I think we're going to see the Sun carrying on much the way he has been in the last month. So the key attributes are that we're likely to see the Sun exhibiting stubbornness, dogmatism, bullying, inferiority complexes, and lack of authority. Lack of self-confidence, timidity, and fear. Tendency towards chronic health issues. This could be the second wave that's starting to come, or it could just be a continuation of infections and death rates staying the same rather than dropping down. There's going to be a lack of resilience. Now, this is a place where we can work on this because we can help promote our own resilience, which is the ability to recover, to move forward, to not get overly mired in the stress. And this will help promote a connection to the soul, or by taking time to connect to your inner voice, to take a moment to breathe and be centered, you're going to enhance your resilience and perpetuate a connection to your higher self, your higher mind, however you conceptualize that. And by doing so, you are going to minimize the sense of misery, which can lead to like grasping and self-centeredness. This here is what I call like the Rahu spiral. You get into this and it's very hard to break out of it. So this is just a little thing about how to start to counterbalance the energy. It's in your daily practice. It's watching your speech. It's being positive, practicing positive thinking, and not overexposing yourself to every twist and turn of every dramatic story that's being told out there, because there are many. There's 3 nakshatras that the sun passes through in a sign, and I always like to look at them to help refine this energy a little bit. So he will be in Mrigashira from June 8th until June 21st. So this is considered to be a soft nakshatra. It's ruled by a friend of his, Mars, so it could be promoting action. And the power it gives is the power of fulfillment, of nourishment, of satisfaction. And that's because this is where the soma is found. And so normally this would be a great place for the Sun. However, this time, Rahu on May 20th entered the sign of Mrigashira. And on May 25th, George Floyd was killed, and this whole thing took off. And I think Rahu there, the strength of Rahu is really stirring up Mrigashira. If he wasn't there, it wouldn't be what's going on right now. So I think this is not going to be a great time of relief for us. Then he's in Ardra from June 21st until July 6th. So Ardra is ruled by Rahu. Again, Sun and Rahu are not friends, but it does give the power of effort. So I think how we could use this energy of the effort is to, what I was saying on the last slide, put the effort into maintaining your resilience, taking care of yourself, caring for those that are around you, And, taking positive actions, however you can do that to contribute to the larger um, narratives, let's say, that are dominating the world. Take the actions, but if you get too involved in forcing the results when we're not yet at a time of resolution, it can create burnout. So put yourself out there, feel free to do that, but don't expect immediate resolution. Ardra is also a very frustrated energy. Ardra, the story is Rudra, a form of Shiva, was given the task to create, but he couldn't figure out how to create, so he became very frustrated. So he started to do tapas, which was internal practice. So this energy here is kind of reiterating a theme. We're seeing that we're still in, let's say, the discovery phase. Things are still coming out, and what we need to create and how we need to move forward are not clear yet. Then from July 7th through July 21st, the sun will be in Punarvasu, which is ruled by Jupiter. And this gives the power to gain wealth or substance. I believe this is going to be the strongest part of the transit. He is friends with Jupiter, although here we are in this time where Jupiter is retrograde. But I think it can be a time where we can move forward here. This is also a story about relationships. The myth that's related to this is the story of Ram's engagement to Sita and his show of strength when he could string Shiva's bow. So this could be a time where we get additional strength. And again, this could be a time where we can shore up our relationships, because it's in our friendships, our intimate relationships, our supportive colleagues, that we gain strength to weather the storm. So on the emotional level, I think those are the key messages for Sun's transit through Gemini. Now we look at the padas. The padas is the D9, and this is often associated with the outcomes that we're going to see. So here we see initially that from the June 15th to 17th, Sun is in Libra, where he's debilitated. So this is not going to be a time when things are going to be manifesting. Then we have June 18th to 21st, which is Scorpio, the pada, which is a friend to the Sun. However, there is a solar eclipse there, and that means that Rahu is there. And Rahu in Scorpio is where he's debilitated. So this will not be, a time where things will really pan out because of Rahu's position in that same pada. So then we look at the next one. Sagittarius is a good sign, but here we come into a period where these next four padas are all under the nakshatra of Ardra, which is ruled by Rahu. So this will not be a calming energy. I think the strongest part of this is July 6th through 8th, where we have the Sun in Aries, his exalted pada, and it's in Punarvasu, which is the best nakshatra for him for the month, because it has Jupiter. And so I think this is the strongest part of the month, is we really want to look at, these micro increments. So this might be something for you to look at and see how you find it manifesting. So now let's move to the other transits that are happening. This is the grid that I like to put together every month. There's so much stuff changing here, but you can see we have on the 20th the solar eclipse at 6 degrees Gemini, and then on the 4th we have the last of the 3 eclipse series with the lunar eclipses. And we also see here that from the time that Mercury turns retrograde, we have 4 planets that are retrograde. The ones that are grayed out here is a retrograde. So we have Venus retrograde, we have Gemini retrograde, we have Jupiter, and we have Saturn. And that's up to the 26th when Venus turns direct. So 4 of the 5 planets that can retrograde are retrograde for this time during the solar eclipse. So there's a lot going on here in this month, and so much that I decided to make a list for your little day planner that you can write these dates down. So on June 18th, the Lord of the Sun this month, Mercury turns retrograde until June 26th. And as I said, there'll be 4 retrograde planets during this time. Sun is then conjunct Rahu in Gemini in the sign of Mrigashirsa on the 19th. On that same day, this is where you really see the intensity here. Of the 18th, we have a retrograde. The 19th, Sun conjuncts Rahu. Also on the 19th, Mars goes into Pisces, which gives a fourth aspect to the Sun. So the Sun's conjuncting Rahu at the same time he's getting a fourth aspect from Mars. That's going to be very challenging. And then the next day, we have the eclipse at 6 degrees Gemini. So this gives you a little look into like, this is really a time to take care and, you know, this is definitely a time to make sure that you're watching your mental health and your practice. And I would say, I always like to say this to my clients, like no bungee jumping during this time. Don't take unnecessary risks, because with Mars acting up and the Sun there with vitality, don't do it. You know, keep it simple. So then on the 23rd through the 27th, we have June, Venus is stationing to turn direct in Taurus. So what's been interesting here is, and then we only have 3 planets that are retrograde. So everyone's concerned about this, the economy, the whole global economy. And what was interesting is that while Venus was retrograde this last month, the stock market, weirdly enough, has gone up. Now, just recently this week, it had a huge drop. But what's coming out is that the stock market is really not based on the economy, especially here in the US, because we have massive unemployment, massive people being laid off, but yet the economy, the stock market recovered. So we have to start looking with more detail of what really does the stock market indicate. And it's something that I've been looking at and I'm still not clear on it. It's part of maybe a new understanding that will come out of all of this is really, we tend to look at an indicator that doesn't reflect the reality in our society. So this tends to make up this whole thing that we're saying we've been living with one idea, but actually that's no longer true. So just something else to put in your back pocket. Now on June 30th, again, we have Jupiter turning retrograde. Jupiter's retrograde and he goes retrogrades back into Sagittarius on the same day that Mercury, who is retrograde, is combust the Sun. So we have Jupiter, and Jupiter will be going through the Gandanta point there when he goes back through from Capricorn into there, and Mercury will be combusting the Sun. So Jupiter and Mercury are pretty much offline, and they're 2 indicators of knowledge and strategy planning. So this would also be one of those days that, you can kick back and really relax. I wouldn't do a lot on that day. 4th of July, we have the prenumbral lunar eclipse at 19 degrees of Sagittarius, which, as I said, is the last one. So immediately I thought, oh my gosh, it's 4th of July. It's the US's birthday chart. So I looked, but what's interesting, and I knew this, but I'd never really looked at it before, that because the US chart is so old, over 200 years old, the Sun doesn't reach the solar return doesn't come on the 4th anymore. It now will reach there on July 7th. But still, with all of this stuff going on, it's quite interesting to look at that. And if you know the US chart, there's a lot of planets in Gemini. So this will continue to, I think, play out in confusion and complications in the US. Then on July 13th, we have on June 30th, these were both active players. So on July 13th, we see that Mercury stations direct in Gemini, leaving only Jupiter and Saturn retrograde. And then on the 13th also, Jupiter is retrograde and has a direct 7th aspect on the Sun. I mentioned this earlier, but I want to reiterate. Jupiter, whatever he's near or aspects, he will expand that influence. So whatever's manifesting around July 13th can really be expanded. I hope that this will be a higher knowledge, but we have to remember that Jupiter, when he was moving through Sag last time, once he crossed over Ketu, that's when the virus emerged. So he ended up amplifying the ideas of Ketu. Now he's gone out of the sign and come back in. So my hope is that he will then be amplifying scientific research and deeper understanding of how we can manage this virus better in the second pass. And then when he stations again and comes forward later in the year, we'll get some final answers and resolution. So I've talked about some of the key transits here. We have the Sun-Rahu conjunction. We've talked about that, the annular solar eclipse, the Jupiter-Mercury, and the partial lunar eclipse. I did some of these, and we've talked at length about all of the retrogrades that are going on. You have all the details here. If you want to just look them up, you can see what's going on. And then finally, we have this other theme. There's so many major themes happening this year. This is what, I'll be really honest, I hung my interpretation of this year on, and it was completely wrong. But in a sense, I saw all these planets, Jupiter, Venus, Saturn, Mercury, and Mars, all will have times during this year where they're in their own sign. And when they're in an angle from their own sign, they form what's called a MahaPurusha Yoga, which is a five great yogas. And this is the best position in many ways for a planet to be in. So this month we see that when Jupiter goes into Sagittarius, the Hamsa Yoga will be revived. And this will be for people that have mutable, the mutable signs will be receiving this. Venus is currently in his own sign, so we have a Malavya Yoga going on, and this is for all the fixed signs, moon or ascendant being there. And then Saturn this whole year will be giving, since January, will be giving Sasha Yoga, which is for all of the movable signs. And that's going on. And now we have the Bhadra that will be active. So it's quite interesting to look at these. I'm now thinking that it's a chance to learn that they're almost all strong. So many things are being amplified. It's almost like they're giving us, everything is just bigger than life right now. And this is what's creating this very interesting time of, that we're living through. So this is something, I encourage you to think about and see what you see in your own practice and watch the world. I thought this would be really great. I thought this would be a time, easy breezy, here we go. So I was completely wrong. So when you start to look at all of this and the layers and layers of things that are happening, it becomes a very interesting but complicated energy to try to work our way through. So let's go sign by sign. So if your moon or lagna are in Aries, the sun will be in the third house and could indicate power struggles with colleagues and siblings. If your moon or lagna is in Taurus, sun will be in the second house and could indicate change in appetite. Be conscious of your speech, as words can cut deep. I really want to emphasize that. And this speech is what you say and what you post. Also realize right now, everyone is on edge. So it's best, unless you really feel you have something that has to be said, I want you to say it, but I would love for you to take the practice of write it, walk away for an hour, come back, read it, and then post it, just for your own peace of mind. And it's often, we do this in therapy all the time, use I statements, because people can't argue with you if you say I. But really make sure that the tone is you expressing your feelings. It will just calm things down because we don't need more conflict in our life right now. Gemini, the sun will be in the first house and it indicates restlessness and sudden mood changes. You may have trouble expressing your thoughts, especially during the Mercury retrograde. So try to lighten your schedule when Mercury stations on the 18th of June and July 11th. One thing to know about all of these retrogrades is they're most intense at the station. So when they're sitting still, that's when you're going to feel it the most. So that's just something to help you refine your understanding of the energy. If your moon or lagna are in Cancer, then the sun will be in its 12th house, which is the weakest sign. It's the weakest house, and it can cause conflict with foreign relations. Now that means people that are maybe outside of your normal peer group, or it could be people from other countries. On a global scale, it could be really foreign relations. International relations could suffer during this month. Poor sleep and some confusion and irrational fears that can overcome you if you do not recognize they're only fantasy. So this is where the conspiracy theories are coming out everywhere. Listen, I have my own belief in my own conspiracy theories, but you have to always recognize that a good conspiracy theory can never be proven one way or the other. So do not overindulge in it because it will just get you worked up and there's nothing you can do. Just keep that in mind. Leo, the sun is in your 11th house, and this is good. It can bring rewards from past actions. So maintain balance in your daily schedule to avoid exhaustion. This is the problem, with Leo, you can want to do too much. Virgo, sun is in your 10th house and can bring public recognition for your efforts. Now, Virgos always feel a little uncomfortable with the attention. But if this comes to you, I want you to take a moment to recognize how much work and effort you have put in and try to enjoy this recognition. Because we all need to take whatever support we can get right now that just helps us to feel better about ourselves. If your moon or lagna are in Libra, then the sun will be in your 9th house and can awaken feelings of jealousy and anger with authority figures. Use your natural diplomacy to address the situation if you feel you must. Can you tell I'm really wanting everyone to double think before they enter anything that could become a confrontation, because it's a very explosive time right now. If your moon or lagna are in Scorpio, the sun will be in your 8th house and can bring up difficult challenges from your past that will be resolved by just taking the time to understand the details before you start to take action. Again, be prudent and timely in your actions. Sagittarius, the sun will be in the 7th house, and it reminds us to take time to connect with our partners and really listen carefully to their point of view. Rekindle intimacy and show how much you care for them. This falls into the theme of really maintaining your peace of mind, maintaining connection with your positive supports, because we all need to weather this storm and we need others that can help us do that. If your moon or lagna are in Capricorn, sun in the 6th house can bring legal affairs to a successful conclusion. So this could be a good thing because sun is a malefic, and with all the malefics there, they can really help to push to win the fight. Disputes over those who are discriminated against will continue to emerge in society, and as we go through this time period, even more and more, it's not just a reckoning of police violence, but there will be many, many other issues that are going to come up. It's going to be like when you go to clean a closet and you just pull everything out, first of all, thank you, Marie Kondo, and then you start to sort it. We're still emptying the closet, okay? Aquarius, the sun in the 5th house will bring forth positive results from previous actions. So remember to share your good fortune with those who were supportive and with your community, and then the rewards will increase. This is the basic nature of Aquarius, is to support the larger community. And for Pisces, sun in the 4th house may make it difficult for you to speak up about injustices that you witness. You'll feel better once you share your concerns. What I'm thinking here is that the ability of the Pisces to see both sides, it can be very confusing. And I think all of us are facing this because one story has so many sides. We can look at the general patterns and know where reform needs to come. We know what we have to do to prevent the virus, wear the mask, social distance, all that kind of stuff. But then it's also seeing the flip side of it, that, we've been isolated for so long, we really want to go out. It's hard to extrapolate anything to a major phase. And Pisces it's an acute talent. I mean, it's a really great talent you have, but this will be a very complicated time for Pisces. So I just want you to know that. And so just take a breath and take time. And when you feel, you really want to share something, share it with your trusted people first. Pretty basic. So that's what I have for today. Thank you so much for listening to this. And I look forward to talking with you next month. Namaste.